Good morning, friends. I think it's time for a little bit of mood reading versus TBR list showdown. Like many of you, for years, I have been a mood reader. You go to the local library, you browse the shelves, you find some of your favorite authors, you look to see if anything new has come in, you get excited, you pick up a new book, you look around and you think, wow, that cover looks awesome. I'm going to pick that up. I like the title, or I've heard good things about this book. You might pass over some problematic authors or just books that haven't worked for you in the past. Do you leave the library or the bookstore with just a hefty stack of books that you decided, this sounds good, I want to read them? Well, fast forward to my journey becoming a YouTuber, and I like to make lists. I like to pre-plan. It's so much fun for me. And then you start making TBRs and books that fit into the TBRs, and sometimes it just feels like, do I really want to read that this week? So what I am doing is we are going to be figuring out this week, mood reading or TBR, or should we be doing a combination thereof? So like a lot of the upcoming weeks that are going to occur in the year, I have made a TBR list. This list doesn't have a theme like St. Patrick's Day or doesn't have a buzzword in the title. I decided to pick up some books that I have been seeing talked about on booktube or on Goodreads, and I decided let's go ahead and slot those in for the week. I've had them on my shelves in my office where I film a lot of my videos, and I need to get them read and back to the library, or I just need to decide maybe it's not for me and move on. Because a lot of times, the books kind of sit out there and they just kind of whisper to me like, hey, don't you want to read me? And so then I'm like, well, maybe I should read that book. But then the next week comes up and I'm reading St. Patrick's Day books, which by the way was a very successful week, but they aren't all the most successful. Some of the books that I've picked that are slotted into a TBR, I'm like, wow, I probably wouldn't have picked that up if I was just mood reading. So what we're going to do is we are going to do some mood reading this week based on my TBR. If something's not working for me, I'm going to kick it to the curb, get it out of here, take it back to the library, donate it, whatever the case might be, and we're going to pick something else up that is mood reading. I am at the library 2 to 3 times a week, and so I can stop in when I'm picking up a book and just browse and maybe just read something that's calling my name. So you'll have to tune in to see if the books that I pick at the beginning of the week are the books that we end up reviewing throughout. It's just not working for me. It's out of here. So it could be kind of fun to see what books end up getting reviewed for the week. So let's talk about what we're starting the week with, and we'll see where we end up. The first book on my mood reading TBR for the week is Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. I know a lot of people love this. I am so hopeful, fingers crossed, that I am one of the people that absolutely loves this book and the series. It sounds cute. I didn't go into this knowing a whole lot. I have Kayla's video saved, Books and La, where she talks about this series. She did a reread, so I'm like, okay, I know she loves it. That's what I do know. Believe this is a fantasy series. I don't know that it's for kids. I think I heard somebody saying that it's heavy topics. It's a short read. We'll see. I'm so excited. I'm definitely excited to delve into this one. I have my first Lucy Foley book here, The Paris Apartment. Excited to get into this one. I believe it's thriller, suspense. I don't know if it's a locked room scenario. We have our main character, Jess, who goes to visit her half-brother, Ben, in Paris. And when she shows up, he's not there. I'm like, what's going on? Is he a goner? What's happening? I do like a good mystery, thriller, suspense. We'll see what category it falls into, but this is definitely something that I would have picked up mood reading. We have Court of the Vampire Queen, Katee Roberts. So I have been reading this. I will say, I'm going to admit, this is not something that I could just sit down and pound out in 1 week. This is definitely something that would take me a while to get through. It is hot, spicy, vampire smut, basically. I have been enjoying it so far. And we have The New Neighbor from Carter Wilson. I believe that we have our character here that has his best and worst day ever on the exact same day. The day that he's burying his wife, he wins the lottery. So he decides to use some of that money to buy a house and move his children, start a new life. Another thriller suspense. I'm intrigued with the premise of this one. We'll see how it all plays out. And because we're doing a little bit of a mood reading scenario, I pulled pulled a couple of books off my shelf. Not saying I have to read these. These don't even have to be my choices for the week. I could decide, nope, I'm not really interested. These are not slated for an upcoming TBR, so I thought maybe we have two cozies here, Murder in the Mystery Suite and Flipped for Murder. I liked the covers and saw that they were, I believe, the first in a new series. Yeah, both of them. And I love cozy mystery series. I'll just go with what looks good to me today as I'm pulling this TBR list and see if any of the books are calling my name. We'll go from there. So it should be an exciting week. We'll see if my TBR list, which is kind of mood reading, if it wins over for the week or reading some books based on my mood. So the first book that I've decided to tackle this week is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. So I will check back in with you as I either read through the entire book or have an update for you as to whether or not I'm going to continue. What? I have about 100 more pages left of The Paris Apartment, and I'm kind of like, what in the world is happening? This kind of started off a little bit slow. We had Jess, who goes to the apartment of her half-brother Ben, thinking that she's going to crash with him for a little while. She had a little bit of a situation in the last place that she has been working and living, and just like the commercials of old, she wants to get away. She goes to stay with her half-brother, and when she arrives, he's not there. She's banging on the gate. Nobody will let her in. She finally gets one of the residents to let her through the gate, and then she manages to weasel her way in. She's tough, and she uses her sensibilities to try to figure out what she's going to do. She has nowhere to go. She has no money. She has no place to stay. Ben's not answering her calls. He's not answering the door. So she's got to figure out what she's going to do. So after that, things start to slow down a little bit. You have multiple points of view. So you're jumping between characters in here. And it looks to be the residents of this apartment complex that Jess is interacting with. They're all acting really strangely. Don't seem to want her there. Nobody seems to know where Ben is. But she's seeing things that are making her very concerned about whether or not Ben's a goner. She doesn't speak the language, so she really doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know who to trust. There are a lot of twists and turns. The pace is starting to pick up a little bit, so I think that I will get through the last 100 or so pages of this book pretty quickly, and I'll be able to return and give you an update. So far, our mood reading challenge is going really well. Following the TBR, I have finished The Paris Apartment. There was no point in here where I got bored and decided I'm going to check it out of here and I'm going to read a mood reading book. So far, TBR list is winning. This book was really good. I will say it kept my attention. A lot of times in the middle parts of the suspense books, I get a little bored. Like, you know, it feels a little bit like filler to me. Some authors feels like they're trying to get to a certain page count. And so they kind of lose me a little bit in the middle. And I'm like, okay, let's get to it already. Didn't feel like that happened here. And the ending wasn't something that I expected. Now, normally I have my guesses as I'm going through the book and I think I know what's happening. I was close on a couple of things that were going on, but the final ending part, no, I did not guess that at all. So I'm going to say, I'm going to give this a 4-star because I didn't guess a lot of things that were going on with it, kept me engaged, and I will be picking up another book by Lucy Foley. The next book that we're going to try, and that I'm very nervous about because I know it's much beloved, I'm sure you can guess, is Every Heart a Doorway here. It's a short book. I will probably read through this pretty quickly. I'm excited. I feel like I don't want to go into this with such high hopes. I guess I'll go into it hoping it's at least a 3-star. So we'll see. We'll delve into some fantasy portal world and I will report back. As expected, I have blown right through this book. It was less than 200 pages and it grabbed my attention right from the start. Perfect mood reading book. I loved it. This was amazing. It had everything. It had murder, suspense, fantasy, found family, growing relationships. I don't know, but I wanted to sob. I don't know. Is that normal? With this book, it was so heartwarming and sad. I don't know. I guess it's because of the thought that these portal worlds that the children go to when they disappear are better than when they were here in this realm. Hearing the descriptions of some of these fantasy realms, I was like, oh my gosh, is their home environment worse than the environment that they were going to? And how do they think that that is good or better? I was like, oh my gosh, it made my heart hurt as a mother for these kids. And the deaths in here, I was so sad. But I did watch Kayla, Books and Lala's video. I started it anyway, about this series, and I do realize now after watching that subsequent books kind of pick up with these characters, do more of their backstory, tell you a little bit more about them, and dead isn't always dead. I guess, maybe? I'm not really sure. So that was kind of helpful, or at least going back in the past, learning about their stories, makes them come alive again. I absolutely loved this, so much so that I immediately went on to my library's website to see if the next book is available. So we'll see how quickly it can get to me, but I am so excited. I might be chucking a book on my TBR upcoming when that comes in to mood read that book, because oh my gosh, it was so good. I'm giving this a 5-star. I hope you could tell that already. I'm so glad that I read this book, and I am so looking forward to more books in the series, which I am sure you'll be seeing very, very soon. Speaking of looking forward to more books in the series, I was bummed that there were no more books in this series. I mean, I know it's a chunky, hefty book, and there was a lot going on. Let's just say lots of vampire smut on pretty much every page. But I did like the story. I know. I'm sounding like, what was it, like guys in days past that would say, oh, I read Playboy for the articles. But I really did enjoy the story behind this. We've all seen some poorly written, at least stories that it's kind of like, how did that ever get published? But this was actually really good. I enjoyed the story, was looking forward to some more. I guess there's nothing else right now from this series, and it's probably over. It had an epilogue. They're kind of all wrapped together. So anyway, I have picked up another book by this author, and we'll see how that goes. Wish there was a little bit more story. I know, and a little bit, I mean, there was a lot here, obviously, but there was a lot of spicy vampire sexy fun times in here, so we could have expanded on the story a little bit, but I'm gonna give this a solid 4-star. So I don't know, at this point I feel like I'm doing really well with my TBR for the week. I'm gonna start in on The New Neighbor. Stay tuned to see if I decide to continue reading that one or if it gets kicked out of here by a mood reading selection. Well friends, it has finally happened. I have hit the wall of my TBR list for the week. This has not been working for me. I got a little bit less than 100 pages on this one, and I just decided this was not the book, probably not the author for me. So on the day that he buries his wife, he wins the lottery. Now, he has two, young children. We'll talk about their supposed ages in a minute, but he decides to up and move them from everything that they've ever known and loved. Obviously, new school district, new friends, nobody around that they know. He just decides to buy this, from all accounts, creepy mansion that has been sitting empty. He does no research. He doesn't know the history of the house, why it's empty, where the owners went, and apparently there's some backstory that could have easily be found in a quick Google search. So I'm like, so he did none of that. He's got no family that is near him to kind of lean on. And so he moves these kids, which by the way, it said that they're 7, I believe. These are not 7-year-olds. These are more, I should say, they're not written like 7-year-olds. They're written more like 12 to 15-year-olds. So clearly the author doesn't have children of this age, but has no idea what a 7-year-old would act like, especially after the death of their main caregiver. He just basically, it's like an afterthought. It was something that I feel like the author just put in there. It had some flavor, but it didn't really feel like he cared about them that much, because clearly the main character does not at all. Yeah, I was getting kind of heated as I was reading through this. I figured out what was going on very, very quickly, and I thought that the main character was just a buffoon. He was an idiot. He was making all the wrong decisions, and perhaps that's part of the point. I mean, You know, to be fair to this author, perhaps that's the point. It's an unreliable main character who is obviously having some struggles. I mean, who wouldn't? I just couldn't do it anymore. So I decided to DNF it. And when I do that, a lot of times if it's a, thriller, mystery, suspense type of novel, I will go ahead and skip to the end to see if I'm right. I was 100% correct, and I was only 100 pages in. Not for me. And yeah, this was a no-go for me. So this gets crossed off the TBR list. You know what that means? We've talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the week. I'm going to go ahead and slide in one of the two cozies that I had picked out, just kind of in advance. I'm going to go ahead and jump into, I believe it's Flipped for Murder. I'll put the picture because, of course, it's not here. It's in another room. I will go ahead and jump into that one. I'm going to go make a trip to the local library. I'm going to go pick up the books that I decided to put on hold to have a nice stash of books in my little shelf so that if I DNF a book, I can pick up from there and just mood read something that sounds good. So these are books that I really have wanted to read, but don't actually fit into an upcoming TBR. So I decided I'm just going to stick it on my shelf and renew it if I can. If I can't, I'll send it back to the library and we'll start over. It's okay. No big deal. I just figured I want to have some books that if I'm in the mood for something and a book is not working for me, I can quickly grab a book off my shelf and it's a win-win. So I will show you what I picked up. Hopefully, if the library is not too crowded, I can show it to you once I pick them up. All right, I've decided what to do with my last Lucy Stone book. I'm going to put it in the recycling bin. Bye-bye. Okay, friends, I am in the car. I had to move because I'm at the library and there was this absolutely creepy dude. I don't exactly know what he was doing, but it looked like he was cleaning his tire rims just randomly in a library parking lot. I don't know, but it's a new criteria for me, new warning sign for a serial killer or kidnapper. I'm like, what is this dude doing? He gave me the weirdest look. Like I was doing the weird thing by going into the library. I'm like, okay. So I have parked where I can't see him, he can't see me. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to know. I'm just minding my own business here at the library. Can you tell I read too many mysteries and thrillers? Yes, indeedy. In any event, I have made my stop at the library. We got rid of the offending book that we will not talk about any longer for this vlog, and I picked up 5 that I had just put on hold the last couple of days, and they've come in. The first one is Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Seanan McGuire. You guys know I just finished the first book in this series. Super excited to continue it, so I couldn't help myself. I decided to go ahead, put it on the TBR shelf. We'll see when that comes into play. We also have the Kaiju Preservation Society. I don't know, this one sounds kind of fun, kind of strange. We'll see. We'll see what I think about it. I did pick up another Jodi Taylor. I have really liked these books. I don't necessarily like the tropes of main characters that are just really not communicating well. And I have the everlasting hope that maybe these two, the two main characters that are in this, love relationship or romance, that they will figure it out eventually. But I do really love the stories and I want to see where they're going next. So I picked up the next one. I think this is a 4th book, A Trail Through Time, Chronicles of St. Mary's. These are going to all fall. So let's see. We've got Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have wanted to try this author. I thought I would pick this one up. I don't know. I guess the cover kind of sucked me in and I thought I would grab it. And the last one, I've seen people talk about this. Don't know if everybody loves it. Thought it was kind of boring. I feel like I saw somebody say it was sort of boring. But going for this book was that I saw it at the front of my library when I walked in on one of the highlight tables, new and interesting tables. And I knew it was there. So I thought, I'm just going to try it. It doesn't seem, it's not huge. If it was like a 500, 600 page tome, I would be like, forget it. I'm not doing it. I'm trying to limit myself on too many of those all at once. So it's The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. And I mean, I'm sucked in by this whole thing of delicious combination of Clue and the Great British Bake Off. You had me at Clue. I love Clue. That movie was amazing back in the day. I loved it back then. It's completely Okay, scary, creepy guy is now pulled up next to me. I'm out of here. Okay, so update. As I was peeling out of the parking lot, I kind of looked in my rearview mirror to see what was going on. Apparently, the dude was taking pictures of his car. So he was trying to last minute clean up and touches in the parking lot and then pulled in front of this section of trees to take the photo, maybe to list his car. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know who's the weirdo, him or me. Probably me. I don't know. Let's go back to, so I'm safe. No serial killer there. Although I still think it was a little weird. All right, continuing on with the golden spoon here. I'm excited. I mean, anything that says it's a combination of Clue and baking sounds intriguing. I'm not really sure how I'm going to feel about it. But again, not super long. Those are the 5 books that I grabbed from the library. So as I continue to read through my cozy, I'll give you some updates, or if I fly right through it, I will check in when I'm finished. Okay, I have finished Flipped for Murder by Maggie Day. I've enjoyed this one. This is the first in a series. It's the country store mystery. We have our main character, Robbie, here, who has moved back to her mother's hometown in Indiana after the death of her mother 3 years ago. So she's been in this town for a while. She's worked at the local fancy hotel as a chef and has decided now is the time, uses all the money from her mother's estate to buy a country store, so to speak, and open up a brand new breakfast and lunch place in town. For this one, all she basically sells is kitchenware, antique kitchenware, bakeware, basically. And so it's a much smaller version, and it focuses mainly on the restaurant that she's open, or her breakfast and lunch place. She has a rotating menu based on what is fresh or what sounds good, what seems to be selling well in town. So she opens up what sounds like a very yummy restaurant in this small town and is doing well. I mean, people are enjoying her food, and of course, all of a sudden, one of the hated townspeople, probably the most hated townsperson, is murdered, and an item that she has cooked is found on the body. So she is the #1 suspect at first. People really don't want to believe that it's her, but everybody hates this person or has had a run-in with her over the years. So the suspect list is very, very long. And it wouldn't make sense for Robbie to plant an item of food on her and point the finger directly at herself, but she kind of starts nosing around a little bit to figure out what's going on. I will say her, snooping and nosing around, which was much more subtle than in a lot of other cozy mysteries that you see. And I actually really enjoyed that. Sometimes it becomes really over the top and annoying. It gets to be annoying. The person is tripping over everybody, showing up at their house, their place of business, accusing them of murder. And it becomes a little bit too much. I felt like Robbie's involvement was a lot more subtle and therefore made it a lot more enjoyable for me. I felt like this just kind of unfolded nicely. I really did enjoy it, but I will say I was enjoying other aspects more of her getting to know the townspeople, seeing what she was going to cook, how her restaurant was going to do. There were a couple other things that happened that I think I was a little bit more interested in, just because this character seemed like everybody was glad that she was gone. I know that sounds terrible, but I kind of was like, okay. I kind of gave up guessing who the person was that murdered her. And it did end up being somebody that I think everybody kind of suspected at one point or the other. But there was a lot going on in here, kept my attention focused on other things than just that murder. I will say the one thing I really did not like in here was Robbie's love interest. I felt like they have zero chemistry. I was like, what is happening? Could be just the way that it was written in this first book in the series, and maybe things will get a little bit better between them, but I wasn't seeing any spark at all between the two of them. Not seeing that that's going to be a good option moving forward. We'll see. Perhaps there'll be somebody else that swoops in and sweeps Robbie off her feet. I'm not sure. But that was the thing that I felt really didn't work in here. So I'm going to knock down my rating just a little bit for that. But overall, I would say this is a solid cozy mystery, and I will definitely be picking up the next in the series. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 4-star. So overall, my mood reading versus TBR list was kind of successful this week, I would say. We had a favorite that we found of the Wayward Children series. It is definitely something I will be continuing very, very soon. So check in an upcoming week, perhaps even next week, where I'll be reading another book in the series. I did have a DNF from The New Neighbor by Carter Wilson. Just was not for me. I enjoyed myself at the Paris apartment and gave that a 4-star. Really did enjoy the cozy. Flip for Murder gave this also a 4. I definitely would say that I'm a mood reader, but because I like to plan things out, knowing the books ahead of time, a lot of times I, get excited about the book, and so then it's like I'm in the mood to read it. So that kind of helps. Having a plan, though, for me is really essential because I find myself kind of floundering if I don't have a little bit of a plan to go by. So many things sound good that I don't really want to commit to anything. So I kind of spend a lot of time looking at books on my shelf, looking at books at the library, trying to figure it out. I waste a lot of time that way. So I find that it's nice to have a TBR, but I also want to reserve the right to kick out a book if it's just not working. If it's not working for my mood that week, find something that really appeals to me. I have plenty of selections to read, and it'll be a lot more fun that way. So thank you so much for watching this week. We have another fun TBR list next week, so if you want to join us then, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.